we're literally destroying ourselves because we're destroying the very womb, the very place we came from. It's a vicious cycle. This can't end well.
I got something from the Magnificat. Magnificat readers will recognize this maybe from a few weeks ago. This was written by Dom Ansgar Vanier. Don't know who he is.
I went to high school with him.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't.
Because he lived in the 1930s. Died in the 1930s.
There's something I haven't told you, Christopher.
So
I'm immortal. I'm sorry.
Back
This
from
is
another
a
life.
terrible
All right.
start.
This was written in, I'm not exactly sure, but he died in 1938. So this was written a long time ago.
A long time
maybe
ago.
even 100 years ago. Think how he might be reflecting on this today. All right, here we
have
go.
A prophetic word then. Okay.
He says, true civilization is easily tested by its attitude towards motherhood. There can be no real refinement of human feeling where man's heart is not full of delicacies for the dignity of motherhood.
Wow.
Therefore, there can be no true civilization where motherhood is either shunned or degraded.
Wow.
So what does that say? So he had this insight back in, 100 years ago.
He died in the 1930s.
He died in the 1930s.
So this could have been written.
This could have been written in,
Okay.
100 years ago.
Wow.
How would he feel about what's going on in the world now? And what did he understand that we have lost sight of? Why is motherhood, why is this respect for the delicacies of motherhood like the cornerstone
Yeah.
of civilization?
Yeah, I love that word, delicacies. It shows a real tenderness of soul
Yes,
and a real
yeah.
sensitivity, which is beautiful. Well, there's a famous adage or phrase: "The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world." Have you heard that?
I have,
Right, the
yes.
hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. I think you would love that quote.
Yeah.
And I would think that if you saw what we're doing today, destroying the cradle, eradicating it, looking at motherhood and fertility as a burden or a curse, it would break him. So yeah, he's plugged into something I think incredibly powerful, that every human life comes forth from mother, gifted into by father, coming forth from mother. And so civilization, this is where we learn civility. This is where we learn personhood and dignity, and we engage in a gaze of a face and feel warmth, and all of our senses are kindled and come alive with that first connection. So motherhood is the foundation, with fatherhood, of course.
Can't have motherhood without fatherhood.
Right, you can't have it, but there's we're coming out of this ground of the feminine, which is so in tune and intuitive and tender and adept to what's going on around, that this is our solid ground, right? This is our solid ground. This is where we all come from. Even to the point of calling the earth Mother Earth,
yeah.
right? And think about
Which is
that.
not just New Age idea.
Not at all, no.
This is a
We're
proper
made-
Catholic cosmology.
Right.
That creation itself is feminine.
Right, and that we are made from the dust of stars, literally. We are formed from the dust of the earth, and God breathes into us his breath of life. So, yeah, imagine severing all those ties to mother, to earth, from which we all come. I mean, you're orphaned, you're abandoned.
And what does it say about the fact that we are reaching into wombs and tearing lives out? What does this say about civilization?
It's falling apart.
Yeah, it's
We're literally destroying ourselves because we're destroying the very womb, the very place we came from. It's a vicious cycle. This can't end well, right? So the further we depart from mother and from the feminine, the further into darkness we go, right? We don't make sense. We're unmoored. It's like we've been cut from the dock and we're floating off into a stormy sea with no foundation or anywhere to go.
I once looked up the word civilization. I was given some talk and was using this word, building a civilization of love. And I look up the word. And I found in Webster's dictionary a definition, something like this, is a paraphrase from memory, but civilization means to civilize, to make civil the sexual desire, really.
Oh, wow.
A civilization is the fruit of the civilization, the making civil of the sexual urge. Because when the sexual urge is uncivil, we treat other people as objects for our pleasure. We use them, we discard them, and if a baby comes, it's an inconvenience and we get rid of it.
Yeah.
But civilization, that which is made civil, can only be the fruit of a proper respect for sexual desire that leads to and is meant to culminate in the family. When we are unmoored from the fact that genitals are meant to generate the next generation, when we reduce genitals to the pleasure they can give us, we're no longer building a civilization. We are doing the exact opposite. Instead of generating the next generation, we are degenerating.
Right.
And when a culture, when a civilization is degenerating, it's the end of civilization. I think that's what he's getting at.
Yeah.
That respect for motherhood means a respect for the fact that sex has a goal. Look at creation. Look at the very design of things. Sex has the goal of generating the next generation. When we fail to honor that, when we fail to respect that, when we fail to respect that sexual union leads to fatherhood and motherhood, it is the beginning of the end of civilization.
Right. And this is where we are. We don't know where it ends. We don't know where it goes. Because we've cut all the ties, so there's no telos, right? That Greek for
end.
End. Yeah. So we're going to be floundering around in the dark. As you're talking, Christopher, I'm thinking of that phrase, and this would go back to when I was a kid. If I was ever far from home or, in some trouble, doing something maybe I shouldn't have been doing, and a neighbor shows up or somebody that we know, does your mother know you're here? Mm. Right? Did you ever get that?
Yes, I did.
We won't get into detail, but does your mother know you're here? And it was just like, oh, because mother ties me back to family and relationships and connections, and she civilizes and humanizes me. We learn our manners from mother in some way. Of course, father too, but yeah, does your mother know you're here? That just came back to me. We need to know where our mother is and have this relationship with mother, because again, it civilizes, humanizes us, gives us those roots.
How can we breathe some hope into this civilization of lust and this culture of death where we've lost sight of all of this? We're no longer civil. How do we breathe hope into this?
Yeah, I mean, we know that we're in a fallen world, okay? So, and all of us in some way, shape, or form have a mother wound and a father wound, right? A mother hunger and a father hunger. So I think we should prayerfully step into that and think about our relationship with our mother. Maybe she was present, maybe she isn't, maybe she's still here, maybe she's not. Press into that, and then take that experience and also bring in our Heavenly Mother. Turn to Mary and say, Mary, I don't know that I've ever met a full, authentic, integrated mother, but I know you are. So help me reestablish connections. Help me become your beloved son or daughter.
I think this is one of the greatest gifts Catholicism in particular has to offer the world. Yeah. Protestant Christianity has almost completely lost sight of this. But I often say, hey, if Jesus is your brother, who's your mother?
Mary's your mother.
Right? One of the very final things Jesus said from the cross was an invitation to all of his beloved disciples, you and me, to behold our mother.
That's the call then.
To take Mary on as our mother.
Look at her, gaze at her, and let her gaze upon you.
I think it was Louis de Montfort who said, no one who has God as father does not also have Mary as our mother. Obviously, they're not on the same plane here. Mary is a creature.
Right.
God is God. But we need a mama.
Right.
What's true in the order of nature is true in the order of grace.
And it's God who is supernatural that created this natural dynamic for a reason.
That's right.
So we can't pull apart and say, I don't like that, I don't like that. Or because of some wound, I'm going to reject that. Go back and try to understand the natural in light of the supernatural.
Which goes right back to the original biblical call, the divine call on the human race is to be fruitful and multiply.
Right.
If we get that right, if we live maleness and femaleness right, everything falls into place. When we don't live maleness and femaleness rightly, it all crumbles. And this is the world we're in now. Mm-hmm. But I would say this, just as a note of hope. The end result of a culture of death is death. But that's not really the end, because death is not the final word. Christianity holds out this hope that resurrection is the final word. So even when everything is crumbling around us, and it is, we can conclude and we must trust that God has a great plan to bring about a resurrected glory out of this mess and chaos. How are you going to do it, Lord? I don't know, but we trust you.
Amen.